I'm Mary Pat from Just Add Students, and I had a teacher ask me for some help for teaching creative writing. So I thought I would share some of my notes and suggestions with you today. So the first thing I suggested is to plan your year. If you're teaching creative writing, sometimes you have standards that you might want to use, sometimes no, sometimes you're building a class from scratch. But look at your standards because they can give you some guidance of different things that you can cover, different things you want to cover, and they can just help you get started on some ideas. You also want to think about whether you're teaching workshop style or not. I would really recommend teaching writing workshop, and I'm going to post a link below about writing workshop if you're not familiar with it or you want a refresher. But writing workshop is going to give you a lot of leeway with your teaching, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's really a great way to attack any kind of writing projects, whether it's creative writing or some other type of writing class. So I would encourage you to look at writing workshop and incorporating that, looking at your standards, because your standards are going to help you create mini lessons for your writing workshop. And then also think about what genre you want to teach. You want to have a memoir, a short story, poetry, maybe a play. You want to have fantasy, or you want to do science fiction. Think about all those different genres that you're interested in teaching in your creative writing class. And then you're going to go to your calendar and take a month at a time, about a month at a time, depending on how often you're going to see your students. And you're going to be able to plot out what they're going to do each month. Now, this is a very loose, very loose plan, but it's going to help you see how you can plan out your year. And you may even have some genres that you say, well, this is going to be optional because if we don't get to this, it's not going to be the end of the world. So you might want to have some places where you can drop out a genre because maybe something else is taking more time. So month by month, again, writing workshop is going to give you some leeway in how you can teach and how flexible that teaching schedule is, because the students will really be working at their own pace. Let's pretend that you have your plan for the year. You know what your standards are. You're kind of getting some ideas in your head of what mini lessons you might want to be teaching and how your workshop is going to go. Well, let's talk about the beginning of the year. How do you get started actually teaching this class? One of the first things and the first days of class, one of the things you want to do is you want to get a writing sample from your students. And all a writing sample is just your students writing something to you. You're not going to grade it, and you're going to keep it, and it's going to help you understand what your writers are able to do, what your students are able to do as writers. I have a post about the writing samples, so that will be also below, how to get a writing sample from your student and what to do with it when you get it. But it's very helpful in helping you figure out where your students are and where their abilities are. The next thing you want to do is take a survey. So one thing I like to do is I like to say what's easy and what's difficult. So what's easy about writing and what's difficult about writing. What do you like about it? What do you dislike about it? And get that survey from them so you get a feel for where they are in writing. Because think about how different a class would be if you had 20 students who love writing and 20 students who didn't like writing, or 10 who did and 10 who did and 10 who didn't. You get a feel for where your students are with writing. Of course, we want them to love to write. But it helps to know where they're starting out. So that survey is really helpful. You can also ask them what kind of writing they've done in the past. Have they written stories and poems? How they feel about it? You can go as in depth as you like, but even just saying, tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like, and that it can really open up a lot of information and help you understand your students as writers. Also, along with that, a survey of how they feel about themselves as a writer is also a way for you to share your own feelings. So your mini lesson could be you answering the survey questions and sharing with them. Maybe you didn't like to write when you were younger, or maybe you had really positive experiences writing as a youngster, and you might want to share that. Also, in the first days and weeks of class, you want to have your students create their writing notebook or their writer's notebook. It can be a composition book, it can be a spiral, it can be digital if you want it to be digital or print, however you want it to be. Again, I have a link that will tell you how to set up a resource notebook. The writer's notebook, and you can even have a new one every quarter if the students fill it up, or halfway through the year if they fill it up, which is fabulous because that means they're doing a lot of writing. If they fill up that notebook, that is such a wonderful accomplishment. But you're also going to put everything in there, their notes, their practice, their warm-ups. It's going to be a repository for all of their writing, and it can be a huge resource for them because the little seed ideas that they have are fabulous for them to use later on for larger writing projects. Then you want to think about what are your foundational lessons. And foundational lessons means they're lessons that your students are going to need throughout the year. Writing dialogue is probably something they're going to do throughout the year. Writing description, something they're going to be doing throughout the year. Think about having some foundational lessons that they can add into their writer's notebook that they will be able to go back to and refer back to. As an aside, in their writer's notebook, save the first 4 pages or 2 or 3 pages for a table of contents. And then as they add information to their notebook, they number the pages. Don't let them number it ahead of time because sometimes that doesn't work, but as they're writing, so that when they say, I need to write dialogue, how do I do that? Oh, I look at my table of contents and I find the page where my teacher explained how to write dialogue, and I have a resource. So empowering for your students to do that. Another thing you want to do and you're going to do this throughout the whole school year or the whole time you're teaching creative writing, is building your mentor texts and start a sampling library. And that can, again, write in the writer's notebook. So introductions, descriptions, dialogue. Sometimes it's difficult for students to copy things into the notebook. So if you can make copies of it and they can cut it out and glue it into their notebook. And then those mentor texts are going to be wonderful for students to go back to when you're talking about description. How did this writer describe this? Or dialogue. How was this dialogue written? Or character development. So it's really great to start building that, and you're going to think about how can you add to this as the year progresses. When you're looking at your mentor texts, don't forget that you can use picture books, children's books, chapters, sections, small text. It doesn't have to be a whole big book. It can be just a small book. Let's say you want your students to write a memoir. Your mentor text could just be the first 2 paragraphs of a memoir or the first paragraph of a memoir. And they can look at it and see what's going on, what makes this genre a memoir, and how did this writer write this. So mentor texts are great for your students to look and notice and imitate and try to pattern their own writing after this, because they can imitate, okay, this person started out by asking 3 questions. I'm going to start out mine by asking 3 questions. Same style, but different content. Mentor texts are a great teaching tool and that you'll be able to go back to all year long and you'll be able to add to. So you've got your beginning of the year rolling, you've done your developmental and your foundational lessons, and now your students are ready to jump into their first real creative writing task. Well, first off, before you're gonna give them that assignment, and every other day prior to this, they are going to start the class with warm-ups. Warm-ups are so important. Writing warm-ups are really important. Just like we warm up before we exercise. You might play the scales before you play the piano lesson. The basketball teams warm up before a game. Having a writing prompt at the beginning of every class where your students are just writing is a fabulous warm-up. So don't forget to add the warm-ups. And then when you're ready to start that writing project on that day, whatever it is, and your students are going to get started, you have already broken up the writing task for them with all the pre-writing and all the activities that they're going to do to build out that writing project. Remember that when you're looking at a writing task for your students, the end product over here is going to get there because you have added and added and added all the little pieces that go along to it. Make sure there's plenty of pre-writing. Make sure that students are able to review while they're writing, and use the workshop model as much as you can to get the students to work together, to talk to each other, and to do those mini lessons that help make the workshop be really successful. Once your students finish those writing tasks, make sure that you celebrate. So whether it's every quarter or if it's at the end of the year, having some kind of celebration, maybe having a literary reading where the students, parents, and families are going to be invited, and administration is going to be invited into the classroom, and each student is going to read something. And remember, it doesn't have to be something that's finished. It could be a partial writing. It could be a part of something that they've written, and they're going to share it. We want to celebrate all of those writing accomplishments. And then we are going to rinse and repeat with each genre. Going back to that, breaking down all the tasks, starting the students with a mentor text, helping them understand what they're going to be doing, and then working their way through it. And remembering that when you do your mini lessons, you're helping them follow the steps of the writing process and the tasks that you want them to do. So that's why Writer's Workshop is just, can't say enough about it. So what are some tips for success? Well, remember to use your mini lessons. So you're teaching a little small section of something you want them to do. Maybe you want them to describe a character. Maybe you want them to describe a place. Use your mini lessons. Also, use your peer reviews. Let them work with a partner or a small group where they're reading a draft or they're discussing something together. Make sure that they understand and you understand that everything doesn't have to be ready for publication. Don't be afraid to write and share with your students. And enjoy the process. Teaching creative writing is just a blast, and there is so much that you can do with it. You are going to have a great time with this, and I am hoping that you know that I'll be here to help, and you can reach me at Mary Pat at Just Add Students. You can also find my blog at Just Add Students. I'm here on YouTube. You can subscribe to my page, and I also am on Teachers Pay Teachers. You can find resources there. You're going to have a blast with this. But I'm here to help. So if there is something I can do to help you, you reach out to me and we can work on this together, because you're going to love it. It's going to be great. Take care.